We're here to talk about rod holders. Did you know that there's 6 different kinds you can have? What are the pros and cons of each? I'm here at Hook, Line, and Paddle with Chris, and we're going to take you through each one to make sure your rod stays in the right place at the right time. Welcome back. If you're new to the channel, we cover kayak modifications, spin, and fly fishing. So poke that subscribe button so you don't miss anything. I didn't realize how many options for rod holders there were until I came up here to Hook, Line, and Paddle and started browsing the accessory shelf. And there's 6 different options. So I'm going to rely on Chris here to take us through and tell us the pros and cons of each. You got to keep this rod where you can get at it and use it. Chris?
All right, so typically if you want something behind the seat, most kayaks now are coming with a 30-degree offset recessed rod tube. If you don't and you want to, you would use a 2.5-inch hole drill, 2 1/2 inch hole saw. Find your 2 spots behind the seat, drill in. I like to mount mine at a 45 because it's easier to pull the rod out. Once it's in, if there's a hatch back there that you can get your hand into, then I would suggest using a stainless steel nut and bolt to secure it. If you can't get your hand in there to put the nut on, then I would use an aluminum dome rivet. These are meant, for boats, for water, not the ones you would get at Home Depot or Lowe's, something like that. You want the aluminum version of it, and that would be the way to do this. Everything else we're going to talk about is going to be some form of track-mounted rod holder. All right. So we're going to talk about first is the Ram Tube Junior. A little shorter, but it does hold your rod well. The nice thing about the Ram Tube Junior is it's a little bit higher and extended, as you can see, compared to the Ram 2007 rod holder. It's a little bit lower to the deck, so if it's up front, your rod butt could kind of get in the way of the cockpit. Ram's simple design with the way you can adjust your rod is just loosening on the rubber ball, adjusting it where it needs to be, and then tightening it back down again to secure it in place. Same with all Ram products. They all adjust the same way. This is 2007. Their big trolling tube is their 2008 rod holder. But again, just adjust where you want it and lock it down. Again, being on the track system, if you don't like where it is, lefty-loosey to loosen it, slide it where you want it, righty-tighty. Hey, my rod's facing the wrong direction. Simple fix, tighten back down again.
So the key thing here is for people to decide what they really need in terms of height.
Right. If you're going to have this in front of you, the Junior being taller won't have that rod butt sticking down in the cockpit, as you can see it would on the 2007 being shorter. Ram does make product where this kind of dog bone area, you can get a taller one if you want to raise it up a little bit, but that's just an extra expense out of pocket.
So is there any particular type of rod that can't go in there?
I think on the Junior, it might be a little tight for a fly rod. I think the rest of them we're going to look at, you could carry a fly rod. Scotty does make one specific for a fly rod. They're the only company I know that makes one specifically to fit one. The Triple Threat from Slick, which we'll get to, is designed to either do spinning, baitcaster, or fly.
So those are good for both spin and bait cast.
Yep, and I would say fly on the 2007.
Okay.
Moving on to Scotty, this is their baitcaster rod holder. This is their Powerlock. Again, spinning or baitcaster could fit a fly rod, but not quite designed for it, but would work. You have the option from Scotty. Comes with the 241 base, which you can mount wherever you want it. If you don't want to use a 241 base, it simply pops off, and then you can use their gear head adapter, again with that same T-bolt, click it in and put it where you want it. The beauty with the Ram being on the ball, it's easy adjustment. With the Scotty, you're going to do a quarter turn to unlock it. Get that tight on the boat. Adjust it where you want it, click it back in. So a little bit more intuitive to do, but still doable. It's going to work the same way on the 240 base if it's mounted. You're going to adjust it where you want it and then push it down.
So the disadvantage of both the Scotty options is they're a little more noise and they're a little bit harder to maneuver around if you want to just change it a little bit.
A little. And, you know, newer ones, like these are, you know, new off the shelf that we're talking about, but once you've had it for a while, once you kind of wear that plastic in a little bit, it does become easier to do. Not as easy as the ram, again, essentially just loosening off the ball, putting it where you want it, and then tightening it back down.
Is there any difference in terms of how they hold the rod in place, in terms of the locking mechanism?
I think, for the 2007 rod holder, it's a latch you got to pull out and open to secure it. So a little bit, got to be a little bit more, you know, cognizant of how that's going to work. On the bait caster, it's a rubber tab that comes over and locks in. I think for me, the two simplest, the one we just talked about, the Powerlock, it just rotates. And the next one we're going to talk about, the triple threat from Select, it's that same rotational design. You know, you don't have to really, you just turn it. You don't have to make sure you lock. Because the thing I get scared about with the bait caster sometimes is, what if I didn't get it? And then it's loose again. I mean, they hold the rod, they hold the rods all well, but I think this is kind of a no-brainer. It is or it isn't. So I kind of like the simplicity of that, and we'll see the simplicity also in the triple threat from Select, which I can move on to now. A little thought, as in from Scotty a little bit, you know, you can loosen it and adjust here for the angle of it, and again, you just pop it up a little bit, rotate it where you want, and slide it back down again. The triple threat, the thought process was, it will do a bait caster, it will do a fly rod, it will do a spinning rod. Again, their rotation, there's a tab right there, open it up, put your rod in, grab the tab, close it back down. Go as far as you can't go and it's open, go as far as you can go and it's closed. So pretty easy to figure out. If you have a longer handled, more of a saltwater fishing rod with a longer fighting butt, you can keep this end completely open. If you're fishing something like a shorter fighting butt on a bass rod, or if you're trolling and you have a gimbal option on the end of your live bait rod, you can click that down to either give the rod someplace to sit, or with the gimbal, it'll rest right in there. They give you the option of either screwing in or using their T-bolts, which screw in. Another thing they thought about was they made a way that you can add a tether from your rod and attach it here to the rod holder. So in case it does get knocked out, at least it's attached to the rod holder.
That's pretty cool. So there's the tether right there.
And it's kind of beveled out from the inside, so you can clip. So it's easy to clip on. You know, once it clips on here, you're more worried about unclipping it from the rod than you are from down here. So, but it is raised enough that when it's mounted to the boat, it's easy to put the clip on.
So this only fits in this mount.
Correct. And that's the nice thing about them. If you start thinking about, well, there's tons of different rod holders. If you find the manufacturer that you like, all their bases are the same. So all this ram fits on the same ram ball. All Scotty fits that same gearhead adapter. So essentially their male and female connections are the same within the same family. So you could decide to carry 3 rods at all time on your boat. You need 3 ram balls mounted. You can put whatever ram rod holder you want on those balls. Adapter on, whatever Scotty product's going to work for you that day, click it in. The triple threat, they try to go away from multiple rod holders. This is the only one you need. If you want 3 on board, buy 3 of them, because it will do all 3 very efficiently. And then their adaption is their T-bolt that just slides right on the track and put a screw down through it, and you're good to go. So pretty simple.
So the other thing I'm noticing here, Chris, is that the profile on all these is about the same
height, except for that 2007. They're all about the same height.
Yeah, this one is the one that I just don't think works. It's just so small.
And sometimes you can notice a little bit that this is a taller rod holder than the bait caster, but the bait caster is a little bit tall. That gearhead adapter gives all Scotty just a little bit more height.
Yeah.
So this Powerlock could probably sit about here if we put it inside that gear head
Yeah.
adapter. So the gear head adapter affords you a little bit of height, or you just buy something from Ram that's taller, or you just buy a larger or a taller one of these if you want to bring that rod holder up. Again, like the 2007 is a great rod holder. I don't think it's great in the cockpit area. I think it's a little bit better behind you because it's a lower profile. And is it worth spending the extra money to extend it up? Or will you just buy something like this for the same? You know, you're going to spend more money to make this work than you would by just getting something like that, or one of these guys, or the triple thread.
You know, the thing I like about the gearhead adapter or the ram ball is that they're easy to move when you're on the water, as opposed to these that end up being either screwed into your boat or screwed into the T-bolt, and then you'd have to unscrew it right here to move it around.
Right.
So if you're not really sure where your rod holder can go, these allow that movement to get it to be able to fit, so it's not in the way of your paddle, not in the way of pedaling and the other things, and it's reachable. So my perspective, Chris, is I would go either with the gearhead track adapter or the ram mount and avoid the screw down thing. What's your perspective?
I mean, and that's true. And I mean, you know, some of the, you know, we start looking back at some of like the older kayaks, like the original tarpon, the original manta rays that came out for kayak fishing before this aluminum track started becoming very prevalent in a lot of kayaks. That's kind of where you were. You had two recessed tubes behind you. You had that little hump console between your feet and your sit on top, and that's where that screwed to. And that was kind of the recipe for a long time. Once track came out, once a lot of manufacturers started integrating it in the kayaks, it became absolutely interchangeable. And I mean, Finn's a huge fan of rod holders too. That's why I showed up for this conversation.
Yep, got to be under the supervision of a dog.
Yeah, while videoing with Steve.
So that's the 411 on rod holders. Now you can go out and look at that display of accessories and pick one intelligently. I'd like to thank Chris and Hook, Line, and Paddle for putting up with me and doing this video. If you've got a comment on a pro or con we didn't discuss on these rod holders, please throw it in the comments below so we can all learn from everybody's experience. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Steve.
And thank you.